In this episode of Mighty Car Mods, we've got the Honda S2000 on the dyno and we're going to battle it out. A cold air intake system versus the factory airbox.
Welcome to another episode of Mighty Car Mods, proudly supported by Just Car Insurance.
Now, cold air intakes, Marty. The world is crazy for them, aren't they?
Yep, they love starting chatter and discussion.
And arguments, Martin.
And arguments, it's true. And it's a really simple mod, so you can understand why lots of people do it. All cars need intakes, and so, freeing them up, making them flow better, getting more air into the engine so you can put more fuel and make a bigger bang, makes your car go quicker.
Now, we have done a video on cold air intakes with turbocharged engines before. That was with an R34 Skyline. But today, all of you guys have been saying, do a cold air intake myth-busting episode on a naturally aspirated car. And because I'm on the hunt for more power, we've brought the S2000 down to Haltech and we're going to battle it out today. So we've got a quite expensive aftermarket cold air intake which came on the car, and then we've got our hands on a factory airbox. So we're going to do a couple of runs, 3 power runs on each, using the last run because that's going to be kind of the most significant and accurate number. And we're just going to see which one makes the most power, and that's the one that we're going to leave on the car.
A factory airbox is often a compromise between packaging, noise suppression and performance. The idea of a cold air intake is that you relocate your air filter away from the engine bay heat and potentially make it flow better too. It's a commonly held belief that this will make the car develop more power. Colder air is denser, so if you add more fuel, you get a bigger bang, which means more power. Well, that's the science anyway, but will it work on our Honda in the real world? It's time to find out.
So we're here with Tuning Fork, of course, who's our resident expert of all things that go choo-choo and bang-bang and whistle-whistle. I have no idea what that means, but of course he's helping us with our myth busting today. Now, Tuning Fork, it's a stock S2000. How much power are we going to make today? Like, are we going to make this 35 horsepower that I've heard on the internet?
Look, I don't think so, because they do make a lot of power for an aspirated motor, but the intake system it looks pretty good anyway. By putting a pod filter on it or removing all the factory intake system, I don't think we're going to make any more power. If anything, we might lose a little bit of bottom end.
Is it true that I've heard some anecdotal evidence that RX-8s with aftermarket intakes are losing power due to the removal of the highly engineered intake? Is that correct?
That's right. So on the RX-8, because it's a 2-stroke engine, the intake system is critical with the way that it works, with the way the air enters, the air speed. So they've actually got a really, really skinny intake system through a huge resonator. Mm-hmm. And what that does is it speeds the air up to go into the 2-stroke. If you take all that off and put a pod filter on, you've just removed all of the engineering. So you'll actually end up losing low down power.
Yep.
On this car, because it's such a high-tech engine, I think that it probably will do the same thing. It might lose a little bit of down low, might pick up something up high. Yep. But the intake system is so big anyway that I highly doubt it.
Okay. Can we just cover one thing off? And that is that one of the when these arguments are happening all over the interballs and everyone's like, cold air intake versus this, one of the main things that people are always saying is you put a pod filter on, you don't get more power. The reason you didn't get more power, they say, is the ECU hasn't learned that there's a pod filter on there. The ECU hasn't been tuned that there's more air on there. I mean, can we kind of put that to rest yet?
We can. It's not really the case, because you've got a manifold pressure sensor and an airflow meter sensor in some cars. As soon as you go to a pod style airflow meter, the ECU knows how much air is going in. So it uses closed loop strategies on the intake sensors and on the exhaust sensors to adjust the tune. So on the dyno, we'll give it 3 runs. So that'll put all of that to bed. The 3rd run is the run where the engine's heated up, it's done whatever learning it's going to do, all the trims are in place, that's what it's going to make.
The Honda came with a cold air intake on it when we bought it, so we're doing our first run with it already installed. Then we're going to swap back to the factory setup. Because this is such a hotly debated topic, we put up a poll on the Mighty Mods forum, and 35% of people said a cold air intake will make power. 8% of people said it'd lose power, and the overwhelming majority of people, 57% in fact, said it won't do anything. I've heard some pretty wild claims from resellers of cold air intakes that promise 10 to 20% gains, and while I think it's highly unlikely that we're going to make those kind of figures, it'd be awesome to see some higher numbers. We've done 2 runs and now we're doing the 3rd run, so this is the one that matters.
So it's 132.5 kilowatts. So that is the number to beat, or to be beaten by, with the factory airbox. We should see this number go down to justify the cost of the cold air intake, apart from aesthetics of dampening down the noise of that, which is just crazy.
Which you can hear at about 3,500 RPM. You can hear that resonance in the intake.
Yeah.
Which, when we're putting the other box back on, we'll have a look at the resonator, the thing that actually takes that noise out of it for a factory car.
Yep. And we'll see if that resonator is actually, if it's a restriction and what it's doing, and if it's actually affecting the power. So people, that is the number, 132.5 kilowatts at the wheels. That is with the aftermarket cold air intake. Now we put the factory system on. Who's excited? I am. It's going to be amazing.
And we'll also just put that in horsepower as well.
Oh, there it is.
So horsepower at the wheels.
This is the system that came on the car from the factory, including this. Yeah. Hello. So now we put all this stuff back on. Let's see what happens.
Because the S2000 has such a high-powered, naturally aspirated engine, a huge amount of development has gone into this intake system. This is evident not just in the cone-style filter, but in the whole intake design. The factory setup is bulkier and heavier than the aftermarket one, which is another consideration when deciding how to modify your intake. Manufacturers are trying to keep bugs, dirt and water away from the engine. If your intake is dragging through puddles, you're gonna kill your car. Other considerations for car companies are emissions and noise, and believe it or not, most customers buying new cars don't want to hear their VTEC yo.
Across all 3 runs, we've lost power compared to the aftermarket cold air intake system.
So here are the results, people. We've made 5 kilowatts with the cold air intake system on the S2000. Now, across the board, we've made around 2 or 3 kilowatts, which is a small gain. But up high, there's 5 kilowatts. Now, I would say for people that are into their choo-chewing snails, turbo cars, it's probably not a big difference. But for a naturally aspirated car, that's considerable, right?
That's to get 5 kilowatts up top. I didn't expect it to make that much power in the top end. Percentage-wise, for an aspirated engine, that's a noticeable gain for not a lot of money.
Yeah, that's like 3% or something, right, of an increase?
Yeah. So you can see that it did lose a little bit of airspeed right down low here. When the engine's making around 40 kilowatts, it has lost maybe 1 kilowatt, simply because the airspeed has slowed down because, the airspeed's increased, because the piping diameter's got small. It's more of a tuned intake system at the moment.
Yeah.
Up top, it's clearly restriction. It's picked up, like you said, 3 to 5 kilowatts. The air-fuel ratio, when we've gone back to the factory system, has richened up a little bit, showing that there is there's a vacuum in the intake system. So this is well worth doing to S2000.
We've also done a cold air intake test on a turbo car, and we've tested some performance filters on the dyno, which you can check out on our channel.
So there you have it, people. Cold air intake, S2000, a little bit more power. Boom. So go get jiggy, enjoy your unicorns. Follow us on Faceballs, of course, faceballs.com/mightycarmods. Thank you, Tuning Fork, ladies and gentlemen. And thanks for Martin for coming along, because I know he hates the car, but thanks for coming along anyway, man. There it is. Happy days. See you, peeps.
Does that mean it's staying?
Yeah, we're leaving it on there.
That intake
We're putting the cold air intake back on there, Martin.
So you think 5 kilowatts is enough to beat me at the drags?
Amongst other things, yes. I probably shouldn't get too much into it now, Martin, but you're actually fired for the next couple of episodes, mate. We don't require your services.
Right.
You've made your feelings very clear about the Honda. And so you can take a nice little holiday. You can go on a Sultana picnic with your MX-5 mates. I don't know what that is, but I'm sure it's not pleasant. We'll see you in a couple of episodes' time, Martin. So I'll take the camera now because we don't need you anymore. See you later, Martin.